Today, we're going to get right into it. We're going to get into a topic that doesn't get talked about enough, in my opinion, anyway. And honestly, it's costing a lot of dentists way more than they realize. There's a trend happening right now, I think, where associates are waiting years longer to buy a practice compared to previous generations. And on the surface, it feels like the safe move probably for a lot of people, but financially, it can be a massive mistake. What's up, guys? Welcome back to the No BS Dental Growth Podcast. I'm your host, Chris Pistorius. Today, we're going to get right into it. We're going to get into a topic that doesn't get talked about enough, in my opinion, anyway. And honestly, it's costing a lot of dentists way more than they realize. There's a trend happening right now, I think, where associates are waiting years longer to buy a practice compared to previous generations. And on the surface, it feels like the safe move probably for a lot of people. But financially, it can be a massive mistake. So we're going to break that down. So I've got Brian Hanks here with me. He is a dental accountant, but he does a ton in practice acquisition. He's helped over 1,400 dentists buy practices across the country. So I think he probably knows what he's doing. He works directly with dental practice or dentists directly to try to figure out when they're actually ready to buy. So it's not like, he'll also help you consult to figure out if now is a good time for you. So we're going to talk about the no BS side of what's good, what's bad, and everything in between. So Brian, appreciate you being here. Let's get right into it.
Thanks I'm a listener, Chris. It's an amazing opportunity to be here. Can I put some hard numbers behind your intro? So you talked about dentists waiting longer to buy a practice. I've got some interesting facts. I know your audience will find fascinating.
Yeah, let's hear it.
ADA published some information. This is a 2023 study, so we're recording in 2026. This is 3-year-old data, but I think it's directionally correct that most dentists end up in the same place they have for generations. So the current numbers are 89% end up in ownership of some kind. Okay, that could be ownership as a partner, as a solo doc, partnering with the DSO in some ownership capacity. But most dentists, 9 out of 10, end up as owners. Okay, But you were right. The same published American, there's a few data points on this, but they all point towards dentists on average waiting about 5 years longer than the prior generation to get to ownership. So they're landing in the same place, but they're taking longer to get there. And we can talk about why, and it has to do with feelings and student loans, but here's the hard numbers. So I ran some numbers. I know how much, I'm an accountant, so I get to see tax returns. I get to see how much dentists actually make. And the average owner makes on average about $151,000 per year more than the average associate. Now, those are two medians, right? And your results may vary, but on average, owners make more money, right? That's just kind of intuitive. If you're going to take on the risks and the pain of ownership, you're going to make more money. Well, $151,000 over 5 years, adding in the interest and the compounding that would go with that, is about $1.1 million on a 7% interest rate. Okay. So if you're an associate, you're a student, you're, thinking about ownership, and you're telling yourself, which is what Chris said, gosh, I don't feel ready. My student loans feel overwhelming. Yes. Okay, good. That means you have a brain, and that means your amygdala is working. All right. I love that. But just be aware there is a cost to delaying where you're probably going to end up anyway. And on average, that cost is over $1 million in earnings in your career.
Wow. That kind of slaps you in the face, doesn't it?
Yeah. Go ahead.
I was just let's get into it. What are some of the top reasons that you're seeing now why dentists are waiting a little bit?
Yeah, it's student loans, number one, top of the list. No question about it. So they're saying my student loans feel overwhelming. And I don't know, Chris, I know your background is similar with grad school and everything. I graduated from grad school with 6 figures in debt, not as much as most dentists, but there's an empathy. I have some empathy for that point of view. Average student loan balance, 386, I think was the last number I've heard. Most I ever heard was an orthodontist, 1.08 million, who was married to another dentist of some kind with crazy numbers. And, so listen, that's a real thing. Yeah, that monthly nut of needing to pay the student loan balance is a big deal. Here's the problem, though, is if you're only feeling the fear and you're delaying that ownership, what's happening is, it's the opportunity cost we just talked about. So if you wanted to really pay off your student loans, the fastest way to do that is to make a lot of money. And the fastest way to make money in dentistry is to own your practice.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. That
But
makes
that's
sense.
number one reason. Yep.
Yep. Are there any, how are the banks these days? Is it easy for, somebody right out of school to get money? I know it used to be. I haven't really kept in tune with it. What's changed in the last 5 or 10 years in terms of getting approved for some of these loans?
Yeah. The main thing that's changed is it's even easier than when you got into ownership. So now it's not, I wouldn't say easy, but it'd be like, easier in the sense that running a marathon now they can do a lot faster because of the cooler shoes and the nutrition and everything. Running a marathon is still really hard, right? But it's easier. And so banks used to have a ceiling of what they would lend to. But the basic requirements haven't changed. So the ceiling has gone from like 90%, 80% of last year's collections to now the big dental lenders, B of A, Provide, US Bank, Huntington, some of the big ones nationally, they'll go to 105, 110% of last year's collections with the same requirements that they used to have, which here are the requirements. I'll give you the 5. Okay. You got to be out of school at least a year. You got to have a decent credit score and a decent credit history is number 3. Okay. You got to be able to do about 80% of whatever the doctor was doing production wise, both in terms of the actual codes and the actual volume. And then the hardest one for most people is you got to have some cash saved up. So 50 grand cash is kind of the typical rule of thumb, depending on the practice you're buying. But Chris, those 5 have been the 5 for the last 20 years.
Yeah. Yeah. That's what I thought. Yeah. What if a kid is crazy enough to want to come out of school and start from scratch?
Yeah, I've helped. By now, it's like up to 10 D4s. They call me. They're hot to trot. They're working on boards and they're calling me at the same time. And we've helped all 10 of them. They have all bought. Most of them have been like family connection of some kind, but a handful of them were just like, hey, I networked. I don't want to work for somebody, and I'm gonna go. 10 out of 10 tell me, I'm glad I did it. I'm glad I'd get into ownership. And then 10 out of 10 very quietly and very kind of cautiously out of the corner of their mouth say, and there was a lot that I didn't know. I wish I would have waited just 1 year. Just 1 year. Yeah. It's just a lot you don't know. Some of the skill set, the location stuff. But it can be done, but it is so extremely hard. I recommend most people go work for 1 year.
Yeah. Yeah. That's cool. That's great. All right. So dental school does a great job of producing dentists. They don't do a whole great job of producing really good business people, right?
True.
How do I market? How do I hire? How do I fire? How do I accountant? All this fun stuff. Do you go through this with them and make sure that they are totally prepared for this venture?
Yes is the quick answer. So that's exactly what I do. My job is to help people feel comfortable along the path to ownership and feel prepared. But I can do half the job on this podcast right now. Okay. All right. So one of my favorite episodes, in fact, I asked some of my current clients, hey, do you listen to the No BS podcast, dental podcast? And several of them mentioned the episode, Stop Answering Your Phone Like This, which is one of my favorites. And I'll tell you a quick story, though, to answer your question, Chris. I'll do half the job of helping people feel more ready by just pointing out that good marketing often is just being better than the dentists around you. Okay. Right. So it doesn't mean that you can't become a dental marketing expert, which would be a good idea. Okay. Yeah. But it's the old saying, in the land of the blind, the one-eyed man is king. Like go just be the one-eyed marketer in dentistry. And so here's my quick story. I live in South Salt Lake, Utah. Utah is very saturated with dentists. And I am, for most dentists, an ideal customer. I'm a married dad of 4, right? Cash pay. And I needed a new GP for me and my family. And the only reason that I'm not a good patient would just be because I make my kids floss their teeth and brush because we work with dentists. But so I have 22 general dental practices within a 2-mile radius of my house. All right, it's a big number, and because of what I do, I thought this will be fun. I'm gonna be a patient. Pulled up Google Maps just like most patients would do. and I dialed every phone number, all 22 practices in about a 90-minute kind of period. Then I started at 10 a.m. on a Tuesday. Okay. And I know you know this because of the podcast I mentioned, but Chris, one of the things you didn't mention in that podcast is guess how many practices even picked up the phone?
Yeah, I know. I was just thinking that actually. That too many, I would say.
It was 12 out of 22.
Oh my gosh.
10 didn't even pick up the phone, let alone some of the tips you have in that episode,
Holy cow.
The price shopper fumble, some of the other things. So then my second question was yes or no. Do you have some kind of membership plan?
Yeah.
That's all I wanted. I didn't know details. You can tell me price. I can talk to somebody who's just yes or no. And only 2 even knew the answer. Right. Yeah. And so here's my point is, your point was, hey, most dentists flip flop the way they think about it. They think I'm a dentist who happens to own a business. Yeah. And I agree with your point, which is no. Think of yourself as either a current owner or future owner who happens to be a dentist.
Yeah.
And my take on that is all you got to do is pick up the phone, start your appointments relatively close to on time, and use plain English when the patient is sitting in that chair, and you're already in the top 10% of any dental practice around you. And then, yes, go be a marketing expert on top of that. But anyway, that's what I think about when I think about marketing for dentists.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, it's scary, to me, like the most remedial things to make your practice successful are just sometimes, ignored, or they're just too busy, or, whatever. But sometimes it's the basics, isn't it?
So those folks out there listening going, I don't know that I feel ready to own a practice. Well, good for you. I'm glad your brain's working. You're probably not, by the way, just like you weren't ready to get into dental school. You weren't ready to buy a house or get married or have your first kids. Nobody's ready for that. You just jump in and do it. That's the same. But, of your dental class of 80 people or 100 people, there were like 3 people that were goofing off, barely passed boards that you wouldn't let near your teeth. And those 3 people, they own a practice and they're making it work. So the fact that you don't feel ready is good, but it shouldn't stop you. And one of the things that can help you is to remember that all I got to do is the basics, and I'm in the top 10%.
Yeah, that's great. Yep. I think that's definitely really good value right there. So the people that come to you and you tell them, no, you're not ready.
Yeah.
Who are they? What do they look like?
Yeah. They are deal hunters. Okay. They're more interested in one of 2 things: getting like a crappy practice that they think they can turn around, or they're so focused on the art of the deal. They're so focused on negotiating that purchase price or really raking the seller across the coals that I tell them, hey, listen, this isn't going to go well for you. If someone's going to pay me money and help with it, will help to the extent possible. But yeah, Chris, I've said no to several clients. I've fired several clients because, just culturally or approach wise, they were getting in their own way, and I couldn't help them. But yeah, it's the mindset of, my student loans are X, 400, 500, whatever the number is, big number, right? Therefore, I'm going to reduce my risk by buying a practice that only collected $300,000 last year. Is understandable, but it's not going to work, right? There is a reason that practice is collecting $300,000 a year, and the chance that you, new dentists, are smarter than old dentists and can turn that practice around is a lot lower than the chances that you go buy a decently collecting practice, 800,000 plus, $1 million plus, and run that show. That's where your safety, the margin of safety is. That's where the good feelings are going to come from. Yeah. I love that question. You're the first person that's asked me that question.
Really? Yeah. Well, hey, you get the good and the bad, right? Sometimes, but I think it's good that you've got that filtering. Tell somebody that, I think they need that honest feedback, but all right. So what are you seeing right now in the market that most dentists don't realize?
DSO activity slowed down. Okay.
I've heard that actually. Yeah.
Here's why that matters. A lot of private buyers make the mistake of thinking they're competing with DSOs, and they are to an extent. But in general, less DSO activity means 2 things. Number one, The DSOs that got themselves in a lot of trouble with too much debt and too high interest rates are offloading practices. Okay. So it's not a game of I'm negotiating with fewer people, but it is a game of supply and demand, meaning there is a higher supply of practices for sale than there were 18 months ago, 24 months ago. That's number one. And then to an extent, some DSOs were trying to buy in that lower price range where most private buyers play. 800K in collections, 1.2 million in collections, 1.5, something like that. And so to a degree, you're competing with fewer potential buyers, and there's less negotiation around that. But that's, I would say that's a marginal effect. The overall marketplace, one of the cool things about dentistry, and also one of the lame things about dentistry, if you're an owner, is the market is pretty steady. Americans still go eat sugar for breakfast. They drink their sodas, and they're going to need the dentist services year in and year out, pretty much no matter what. So you don't see the lows, which is the good thing. Yeah. You also don't see the peaks, right? Like huge jumps out. My collections jumped 80% last year. That always happens, right? So,
right. Yeah. That's why banks love them so much, I think, right?
Exactly. They're steady.
Yeah. Yep. Okay. All right. So what happens after somebody buys a practice? Where do you see them struggle the most? Initially?
Yeah, their first 30 to 90 days are rough because they're learning so much. They struggle with a couple things. First is just the sheer volume of tasks. Okay. Yeah. So they are scared to death. They're not going to collect enough money to live. So they book themselves solid, or happily the seller was booked out and they took over a busy schedule, which is a good thing. And they're trying to figure out payroll for the first time. They're trying to log into the back end of WordPress for the first time. So that's number one. So the tasks, number one. And then number two would be the basics of management really can be boiled down to create good relationships and don't be afraid to give feedback. And most dentists, when was their last job? Their last job in the non-dental world was like high school or college delivering pizzas or something, right? Which again, there's nothing wrong with that per se. It's just been a while since you've seen a good boss do basic management. And so just learning the people side of the business. So what I would tell listeners in answer to your question is learn the basics of marketing by continuing to listen to podcasts like this. And then go find some kind of leadership management skill type resource, book, podcast, friend, buddy, mentor, study club, whatever it is. So you understand the basics of how to lead a group of people.
Yeah, that's awesome advice. Mentors, especially if you're young, are so important. I mean, I still have plenty of mentors because what they don't tell you also about starting your own business is that it's incredibly lonely at times, right? Because if you're just by yourself, or even you could be full of a room of people and still be lonely because the room of people are probably your employees. They don't understand the frustrations and the daily grind of it. I had a mentor tell me once, there's really two times where you have people there celebrating you. It's when you first open, right? Where you got a group of people like the ribbon cutting open and you're getting ready to start. Everybody's just supporting you. And then at the end, when you exit, when you sell, and everybody's congratulating you on a successful journey, right? That whole in between is completely lonely, dead zone. But that's the middle is what's the most important. It gets you to that end. That's everybody's celebrating. So unless you have somebody or a community or a group of people that you can lean on during that lonely time, it's going to be a struggle for sure. So I think that's a great way to put that.
I'll be curious, Chris, if you have any specific recommendations here. Can I make two for that community aspect? One would be your local study club. You need a group of dentists around you, other owners, right?
Yes.
That are dealing with, whatever, insurance credentialing or the supply reps and some of the idiosyncrasies of dentistry. I'll mention one other resource that I wish got talked about more in dental circles, and that is, there's two groups. There's Entrepreneurs Organization, or EO for short. And there's another one called YPO, or Young Professionals Organizations. They have an age limit that's harder to hit for a lot of dentists. But most dentists would be very well served by joining one of those groups where there's a bunch of business owners that aren't dentists. And they can go learn from, the local whatever, tire shop owner. I've got a guy in my business that's a lawyer, in my group with EO that's a lawyer. one that owns, a manufacturing company. And I'm learning all these lessons from other business owners, and it makes it a lot less lonely. So those are two.
Absolutely. And there's Facebook groups now that you can join to make it easier. There's, I think BNI is still an option, Business Networking International or something.
Yep.
And also your local chamber of commerce too, can hook you up with leads groups and peer groups. And what happens a lot of the times for a lot of our clients that do these things, they get clients out of it too. They get patients out of it because everybody needs a dentist, right? So it's more there's mentorship, there's guidance, but there's also a whole room full of brand new patients as well. So cool. All right. Well, I'm going to wrap up here in just a second, but if somebody's on the fence right now, let's say about, buying a practice, what would you tell them?
Okay. I would reiterate the thing I just said about the joker in their dental school class that probably owns a practice. If that dude, and it's always a dude that was the slacker. If that dude can run a practice, so can you. That's number one. Second is, when I got started doing this about 15 years ago at another dental CPA firm, I went to look for the book. Where's the book on how to write how to build a practice? There wasn't one. And so I wrote one. If this is on video, you're looking at the title of the book is, an accountant obviously titled the book. It's How to Buy a Dental Practice.
Nice.
It's nice and thick and it's big and juicy. And, but yeah, go to Amazon or you can come to my website. How to Buy a Dental Practice lays out the steps. And by the way, Chris, I don't know if you subscribe, and I think you do based on my listening of your show, but my goal with writing the book was that you could avoid hiring me, right? So I give you everything that you would need to know to buy a practice right in that book. And so if it's helpful and you're on the fence and you need some resources, there's one. It's $20 on Amazon. I think they give me 2 of that. So it's
I know.
And that's a big money maker for me.
Right.
I'd be happy if lots of folks went out there and bought it.
Yeah. You're not going to put your kids through college probably, but hey, that's right. I hear you. All right. Well, cool. What if somebody wants to work with you, man? How should they get a hold of you? What's the best way to get in touch with you?
Thanks for asking. Dentalbuyeradvocates.com. So 3 words, dentalbuyeradvocates.com is where to go. You can type in Brian Hanks and Google and I'll pop up. But yeah, Dental Buyer Advocates, the book, How to Buy a Dental Practice. And I have my own podcast. It's called Practice Purchased. And similar to you, Chris, I try to there's no ads. It's 20 minutes or less. And it's just pure content.
Good data. Yeah, I like that. All right. Well, man, thanks so much for being on here. I'd love to reconnect with you in 6 months or so if you're up for it and just get an update, see how things are going, any obstacles you're seeing in the market, things like that, if you're up for it.
It's a deal. And the listeners out there, you guys hold me accountable. Send me a note if I'm not on.
Yeah, for sure. All right. Well, cool. This was a great conversation. I think for me, the biggest takeaway here is this: waiting until you feel ready, the exclamation points, might actually be the riskiest move that you can make. The longer you wait, the more money it's going to cost you. So even if you're thinking about it, this is one of those decisions where you got to kind of, get the right information, the right people. And I think Brian is the right people for this. So, if it's something you're even starting to think about, I think he would be a great resource for you. Again, Brian, really appreciate you coming on and breaking this down. There's be a ton of value in this one. I think this one's going to get a whole bunch of viewership. So I appreciate it. For everyone listening, though, if you did get value from this episode, share it with somebody, please. Maybe somebody who's been on the fence about maybe buying a practice, because the chances are they probably do need to hear this. And as always, if you like what you hear, subscribe, like, share, whatever. It helps. You'll get notified when we drop a new episode. We'll definitely see you on the next episode. Appreciate your patronship.
Thanks for joining us this week on the Dental Marketing Podcast. Make sure to visit our website, www.kickstartdental.com/podcast, where you can subscribe to the show in iTunes, Spotify, or via RSS, so you'll never miss a show. While you're at it, if you found value in the show, we'd appreciate a rating on iTunes. Or if you'd simply tell a friend about the show, that would help us out too. If you are ready to grow your practice, then you might want to schedule a free strategy session with us. Just go to kickstartdental.com and click the free strategy session button and give us 15 minutes of your time to change your practice forever. Be sure to tune in next week for our next episode. And thanks for listening to the Dental Marketing Podcast by Kickstart Dental Marketing, where dentists go to win online.